Okay, we're going to join the Teams meeting, but they're not going to be able to hear you. It's just going to be a video of you. Hey everyone, welcome. If you could just give us a thumbs up if you can hear us. Let us know maybe where you're joining from, and we'll give people a couple minutes to hop in here. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining our September office hours. We do this to try to help give you guys access to our team and help you get unstuck on any Office 365 problems that you might be having. Wanted to review the agenda quick. We're going to spend about 15 minutes reviewing recent questions that we've gotten from the community and just answer those questions and provide opportunity for anyone to ask for further clarification. After that, we're going to spend the rest of our time digging into some of your questions. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, feel free to drop those in the chat and we'll do our best to get to them. One note, if you're joining from YouTube, I posted a link to the Teams meeting in there. So sometimes if there's questions that you guys have, it's easier to just talk. So we can give you guys ability to talk if you join the Teams meeting. So you're welcome to do that. We do this every first Wednesday of the month. So if you want to always be up to date on those things, feel free to join our email list. You can visit our website, and on the bottom of every page there is a spot to sign up for our email list. Give us just a second. We're going to turn off our HVAC because it can get a little bit noisy. I can do it. Okay, I'm going to be turning that off, and I'm going to let Matt and Mike take the stage and start digging into some of the questions.
Good deal. Welcome, everybody. So I think I'm up first. I've got a few questions to field here. We've had a number of questions over the last few weeks revolving around customized forms in SharePoint, so using Power Apps, basically. The first of those questions is, can I add a rule to the form? And the short answer is absolutely, you can do that. I'm going to go ahead and open up this particular list form that I have here. I've already customized this one. You may have seen this one in one of our previous blog posts or YouTube videos. This was a really simple example that we did where we implemented a customized form for a SharePoint list using Power Apps and created it such that we had multiple forms, one for basic form content and then another one for a rich text field to capture a larger block of content on two separate forms and kind of demonstrate how that functionality worked. So you may be familiar with this already, but adding rules is pretty simple. So the first thing I'll mention is that generally out of the box, the default behavior for these forms is to honor the rules that are set in SharePoint. So if you set a field to required in SharePoint, the Power Apps form is going to honor that required field and stop the user from submitting it without having that filled in. So that's a pretty basic one. But if you want to do something more advanced, you might do something like, I don't want the user to be able to save this without, having a certain field specified, or, for example, if there is a particular status. So in this case, I have multiple options for my status. I have planned, assigned, draft needs approval, ready to publish, and published. You might say, I don't want it to go beyond assigned without having some actual content in the description. So you could do something like that. So let's take a kind of a quick look at what that might actually look like here. So in this particular case, see if I have. So there should be an option here on this data card for whether or not it's required. So this currently is set to false. So on this particular data card, we can actually come over here and unlock it, which will allow us to basically change this rule. So right now it's not required. If we wanted to set a rule to make this required, if the status is, for example, anything other than assigned, let's say that's completely contrived, but we could do that simply by coming in here and applying a rule as follows. So if, and let's go get the name of this field. So this is data card value 4. So go back over here. If data card value 4 selected value, and we're going to say not equal to assigned, then it's required, else not. So it's pretty simple like that. And so now I'm just in play mode by pressing Alt. Let me see what happens when I remove this content here. Whoop. Did not want to do that. There we go. Let me go back. The fortunate thing is I didn't save this, so I'm going to jump back out to SharePoint, not save, and come back. Because I accidentally just deleted something. Yeah, I lifted my finger before I hit the delete key. All right, so back in. We'll go create that rule again. Thanks, Mitch, for fixing my mic. All right, there we are, back at it. So in this particular case, let's go with this formula here. So there's our required field. If not equal assigned, and true, false. All right, so that should do that. Now let's try not to delete. Yeah, it won't let me do it here. I need to actually play it. All right, so you'll see the star now shows up when it's anything other than assigned. And so that would stop me from submitting the form, just as an example. So there are many other examples of that rule, or other rules that you can do, but that's just a simple example. So if you have any specific ones that you'd like to ask related to that, you can certainly post it in the chat. The second scenario that somebody asked about, and they were basically trying to reproduce what we had done for the YouTube video in that blog post, and that is multiple screens for a SharePoint or for a customized form, customized list form in SharePoint. And so you'll see we have multiple screens here. And the problem that the user ran into was they had followed our steps, but then when they created a new item in the list and saved it, instead of creating one item, it actually created multiple, so created 3 items. And so I'm not sure exactly what the specific cause of that issue was, but a few things that I'll remind you of when we created this. One thing to note is that whenever we come into this particular form, there's an option on the SharePoint integration data source itself. There are a number of options here for on cancel, on edit, on new, on save, and on view. These are all basically events that get called where we can apply a little bit of code to make the forms behave the way we want them to behave. So one of the key things to do here is if we're creating a new form, we're basically calling this new form for every one of the screens that we have. And so I've got 3 of them in this case. And so we're doing that here, and then we're navigating to the main screen we want the user to go to. In the case of edit, again, we're doing the same thing. We're putting the forms into edit mode. And then one of the key things is on save, we're actually submitting each one of the forms. so that all of the data gets submitted. So this is what I currently have published out in my list. And so if we go take a look at that content scheduler list, just to kind of show the point. And again, I'll refer you to the YouTube video if you want to refer to the actual steps. But if we create a new one of these things and say, call it another test, and we'll assign it. It's going to be a blog post. Some test content. We're going to go flip over to this screen and create some additional content for my blog post. And again, we could flip back if we want to, but at this point we should be able to click save. And it just created a single item in our list. If we open that back up, so one of the other questions was, can the user review the content? I believe that was part of the first question as well. They can open that back up and see that same content. In this case, it should have actually lost some of my content. Let me look at that again. It appears I have a flaw in my form. I will have to go investigate that. But in any event, that's how you would review that content. But again, this is saving just a single item or creating a single item in the list. So I would refer back to that original YouTube video and just follow those steps carefully. In particular, pay attention to the stuff that's in the events on the SharePoint integration as a key to that thing. And the way that we duplicated these screens is I simply grabbed a screen and chose to duplicate it. And it's as simple as that. And then you just change the fields on the screen. All right. So our last question, Matt, can you give me a reminder what the last question was?
Last question is the one that I'm going to do. I think.
No. There's one before that one. I got it now. So the question was, can you display a specific form to the user based on a given security rule or permissions that they have? So the answer that we posted in response on the YouTube comment was, yes, you can absolutely do that. There are a number of methods to do that. If you are looking to figure out whether or not the user has a specific permissions or membership to a SharePoint group, you can actually make a call out to the SharePoint REST API to get that. And typically, you might use something like a Power Automate flow to make that request and then get the result back in your form. Just as a simple way to demonstrate that, in this particular example, I've added another data source called Office 365 users. And I've added this so that I can get some additional context about the user that's actually logged in. And so an example of one way that you might route the user to the correct form or keep them on a specific form using this data would be in our app onStart, for example. So if we jump over to our onStart, you'll see here that I've already set basically a user context variable where I'm going and getting the user's display name and the department. And you'll see at the bottom of the form here, I have that displayed. It's got my name and my department displayed. But you could very simply come in here and say, I want to take the user to a specific location or a specific form or screen based on what that department is, as an example. So instead of going out and getting the permissions or the security group from SharePoint, we'll do it based on the department. So to do that, we could simply say, if Office 365 users, and we'll use my profile v2 dot department is equal to operations. Then we're going to navigate to take them to the content screen. Else we're going to navigate to our first screen. Now, this is obviously just like navigating them there. If you wanted to like keep them there, you could implement some logic. For example, in form screen 1, where on visible, you figure out what the user's department is, and if they're not supposed to be on that particular screen, you could navigate them to the screen they're supposed to be on, as a way to keep them out of places they shouldn't be in. So that's just a simple example. So if I come in here, in this particular case, I'm on form screen 1. If I run my onStart, this is actually going to figure out, I'm in the operations department, and it routed me right to that particular screen. So if we want to see this actually in action, I'll go ahead and save and publish this. Publish. All right, and so now I'll go refresh this and hope that that publish got here in time.
What SharePoint site is that? So I can, because you were going to have me show it too.
Yeah,
right?
sure. It's sites/demo data. Great question. So I'm going to jump in here and look at this existing item. And it looks like
I don't have access to it, so I can't
Oh,
show
you don't
my-
have
my
access
site.
to it?
Yeah.
How's that possible? Let me go solve that problem for you real
I
quick.
can add it myself, actually. You focus on that. I'll
Right.
go to the admin center and add myself.
All right, no worries. So there, okay, so I've got actually two things going on here. So it routed me back to that screen, and I'll tell you why, and that's because if you remember, I have stuff going on in this on edit or on new somewhere that is routing me to a particular screen. That might be what's going on. Actually, I think to be safe, I'm going to add this logic in my other places. So in my on edit, I'm going to do those things and then do that.
So the documents or?
And in my, no, if you go to site contents, there's a content scheduler list.
Got it.
And then in the on view, I think is the other one that's the culprit. Yeah, this one's navigating to form screen 1. So now we're just going to basically force it based on my department to take me where I want it to go. So we'll save that. Publish again. All right, so now let's go refresh. And open it up. There we go. So it routed me right to my content screen based on my department. Matt, you're in the executive department in this particular case.
Of course, I'm very executive.
Right.
Yeah, so on mine, basically, if I go, you want me to edit one, Mike?
Yeah, just pick the top one in the list.
Okay. I'm going to edit it, and that takes me to this view, which is a little bit different.
Cool. Yep, so that's just a simple example. Again, like I said, you can, if you need to get actual permissions or security group membership from SharePoint, you can use the Power Automate flow. There's a lot of examples out on the internet on how to do that. Maybe that'd be a good topic for one of our next blog posts. But that's a good way to do that, to find out if the user is, for example, a member of the, the owners group on a given SharePoint site.
Yeah, a couple things I'd like to point out about this is that while you can do all of these things, which are really great for the UI, remember that it doesn't actually implement security. So if I was in, for example, Mike's scenario, we currently have edit and grid view. I can click edit and grid view and edit anything I want, right? As long as the field is editable, I'm going to see those things within the other standard windows within SharePoint. And it's the same thing with lots of other scenarios. And even if, so let's say you turn off, because you can turn off grid view, you can turn off inline editing, you can turn off a bunch of different things that would maybe give you access to that. Even in all those scenarios, if somebody wanted to use PowerShell as a regular user, they could then go in and do that. It's not security in the same way. It's not an absolute security measure.
Yeah, so the real thing that trumps everything else and the thing you should be doing to secure your list or library content is applying permissions based on security groups, either in Active Directory or in SharePoint, and relying on that as a security mechanism. What we just showed you is more of a kind of a workflow convenience, make the user experience better, right? If somebody is in the marketing department, it makes sense for them to see certain content first or focus on certain content. That makes a lot of sense to route them there first.
Yep.
All right. So I think that does it for the questions regarding the customized list forms. Is there any questions in the meeting that we need to address?
So there was one question about whether or not we can see the content of these videos afterwards. And Mitch responded, we don't currently, I don't think, Mitch, you can clarify, but I don't think we have currently published them, but we can, if that's interesting to people, so that they can, on YouTube, for the attendees. So if you guys wanted to share it with other people, you're more than welcome to. We're not producing this content into like our traditional YouTube channel with content all the time. So, Mitch, I don't know if you have any other comment on that.
Yeah, no, that's the gist. We don't keep them listed after they're done, but there's always a link to get to them, so we can share that with those that were here.
Cool. So if you have a question at this point, we've kind of gone through all the prepared content that we are. Nope, I had one more question that I was going to go through. So there was another question, as we often get this question. Even last month, I think we went through a very similar question, and that is, hey, I've got, I want to know when a particular feature in Office 365 is going to be out. Short of having pretty high level engagement with a Microsoft representative. So like if you are a very, very large company who has a large EA agreement and a large support agreement, you sometimes are able to get additional like preview information. Outside of that, the only way to really know is to go look at this, which is the roadmap, Office 365 roadmap. I'm going to post this in chat so everybody has it. Let me put this in chat quick. And basically, what this is Microsoft's official notification about what is either out, already out, in development, rolling out, for what environments. There's a lot here. So there's pages upon pages upon pages of items. It's currently showing 1,500 items. Obviously, on the left-hand side, you're going to want to filter that. In their particular case, they were looking at calendar view. So what I would do would be calendar, and you see 13 are in development, 12 are rolling out, 31 are launched. And then I might go in and look at products, and they were looking at SharePoint or lists. So, and I don't think there's a Microsoft lists in this list. But there is SharePoint. So I just got to find SharePoint here. And you can see the calendar view and list web part, and this September 2021, right? The new calendar picker is rolling out, but this is dedicated to GCC and to not really to worldwide. So this is supposed to be out already, but obviously it's been rolling out for a very long time, right? And so some of these things can be really confusing. What really, the way we look at it a lot of times is if it's in development, you're not going to see it for quite a long time. These dates here, if they're in the future, I would say plus or minus 2 months. If they're in the past, I would just go check whether or not the feature's out there. What that usually means is they've been rolling out, they had a problem, they're rolled it back, or some people have it and some people don't. I would just go out and check. There's a very good likelihood that you have it in your environment.
To that, Karen just posted it.
Yeah.
And it looks like she was using a feature having something to do with the Flowbot posting something to a user, and it was in preview mode. And now it seems not to be there. So she says now we only see a post to a user in Teams with options. Would we see those changes on the roadmap?
Yeah. It's very difficult. So the roadmap is going to give you some of that. So if it's a feature that was put here, like actually called out, then yes, you would see it. So in this case, I think what you, let me see if it's, I got to change from SharePoint here. Excuse me. Yeah, so Power Automate actions for Teams and channels and chat. You'll see a lot of these are in development. So basically, you won't see the detail probably that you're looking for about, hey, this particular feature was there and then we removed it. They don't provide that level of detail, quite frankly. What you will see is, hey, here's my actions, here's what we're doing, which I'm not saying this is the one that you're looking at, but it's like, I'm sure it's in here somewhere where you'll find, hey, we're adding some sort of extra actions to Power Automate as it relates to Teams. And you'll see what the state of it is. And if it's in development, like what you're experiencing where it's was in preview, you know, I would use it with caution. I would say most of the time those things are just going to flip to GA. But in your case, what I think happened is they basically decided they didn't want to implement it that way anymore and now have GA'd a different way to accomplish a similar kind of action, which I'm not 100% sure what action you were trying to do. So, but if you want to give us some more detail, we might be able to talk a little bit about that.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. Next question from Nicholas. Says he ran into an issue the other day on a SharePoint list Power App form. So like the customized list forms we were messing with a minute ago. He changed the name of the list.
Yeah.
And it screwed up something with the SharePoint integration, and he could no longer reference the list item. Clearly, the fix is not to change the list name, but have you guys run into this before, and is there a way to get around it?
Yeah. Did you try to refresh the connection? Like, so Nicholas, I think Nicholas,
So-
if we want to let him talk, Mitch, it might be helpful.
I still have my customized list form open. I don't think there's a way. Let's see. Yeah. So if Mitch, do you have my screen up? Cool. So a couple different things here on the SharePoint integration side of things itself. If you look at the advanced properties of that, you'll see that its data source is pointing to this content scheduler. Okay, and this is basically a reference to the data connection that you have inside the form. And so if we flip over to our data sources tab here, you'll see there's that content scheduler item or data source referenced. And then if you actually look at the settings of this, or what the options you have here is, one is you can refresh it. So that's just if you need to like force data in. But that is the reference, if you will, to your particular list. And I don't know, yeah, so edit data just takes you out to the list.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a great way to just fix that
So
there.
it depends on the error that you were getting, actually. So part of the problem is the connection, or could be the connection, which he said he responded, by the way, and said that he refreshed the connection.
Okay.
The other thing is that all of the spots within your form, like, so if you go into like the integration settings, Mike.
Yeah, right here.
Yep. And when you're looking at that, a lot of those scroll up to the.
Yeah, I don't think these are going to reference it, but there are references elsewhere in the form.
Yeah, there's.
So what you're referring to, Matt, is the fact that if you do change this list name, technically this changes. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
So if you change it from Content Scheduler to Content Scheduler 1, for example, then what Matt's saying is there are other references within this form that you aren't necessarily aware of that will have to change. So if we go, for example, I'm trying to think of an easy place to find those.
So, well, the other thing I was going to say is, so it's really, so what
I-
Nicholas said was true, which is that, like, try not to change the name of the
Yes,
form. Like, try to be
100%.
consistent and make something that you want. The other thing is, I do believe there are ways that you could potentially fix it, but I think it depends on what you're doing with your form.
So here's another place. So I'm in the screen looking at the form itself. And if you look at the data source for that form, again, it's pointing to that same content scheduler thing. So that's like a ripple effect that has to take place throughout the form. The unfortunate thing about customized SharePoint list forms is there is not a great way to export and re-import them. It is possible to do, and I have messed with it. And you can get basically the MS app file and just like take it apart and put it back together. But it is probably 75% of the time more work than it's worth.
So a lot of the reason for that, just so everybody knows, is as we understand it, the way this is designed is when you do a customized form like this, the actual app that you're working with isn't really stored in the traditional space that a Power App is stored in. Like if you were to go to the default environment and create it, it's way more tightly integrated with SharePoint directly, in which case it's really, it just doesn't have the same import-export solution, like all of those features that you have in a rich, regular application.
Cool. So yeah, I think we're ready to answer any other questions anybody
Yeah,
has.
I don't know, Nicholas, if hopefully that kind of answered your question.
I did allow him to unmute.
Oh, you
if
did
he
allow him
wanted
to. Nicholas,
yeah.
if you wanted to unmute, you're more than welcome to unmute and chat if you want.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Yeah, it was weird because it was really more of a UI deal. I didn't really like the way the name of the form looked, or was it the name of the list? So I just decided to change it, and that kind of screwed everything up. It was probably something
He's
to
typing
do with.
currently, so. Anybody else have any questions?
He's got me tempted to change my list name.
And try it? Yeah.
See to see what happens.
Oh, okay, he tried to talk, but his mic seems to be not working. If you could just verify that he was unmuted, though, Mitch.
Yeah, I think we're good here.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, okay. Yep,
Yeah,
I
it's-
see
it's
him
on.
talking. Give me just a second.
Can you guys hear me now? Hello,
Should be
hello.
hearing it.
It could be me.
Want to have him try to talk again?
No,
I'm still
I
trying.
see him talking. This happened last time.
Yeah, where it doesn't pipe into us.
Yeah.
I'll
and it
keep
should
giving it
be-
a go here. It's not a huge deal, but that it did help.
Do we want it? I can try to
It's up to you.
leave
It's
and
okay.
re-enter quick. Give us just a second. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
This is where we need like paid sponsor.
In the background.
Yeah.
You guys able to hear me now?
Okay. So I can hear. All right.
Hello, hello.
It's still not coming
Yeah, so
through.
Karen can hear it, but none of us can.
Let me test something quick.
Yeah, I imagine everybody else can hear, but we can't.
I swear I have everything picked in the drop down correctly.
I could just plug my headphone into my laptop and listen to that for a second.
Yeah, it's up to you.
I can try just to see if we can get it going.
See if
One moment, please. See if I can. Devices. Yeah.
okay, so that worked.
Okay.
Team, it's only Teams, so I can play other stuff from my computer, but Teams is not sending it. Let me try.
Okay. Nicholas, I think I should be able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Sorry.
No,
I
you're
wasn't
good.
trying to make it a big deal. No, so I think you guys are right. It's probably had something to do with the connections in there. It was really more for me a look and feel deal. I didn't like the way the list was named, so I was like, let me just change that real quick. It screwed a bunch of things up. Long story short, I just copied everything out to a blank parrot form, deleted that form, and then copied everything back, and it was
Worked fine.
it worked fine after that. So it wasn't too big of a deal. It's just kind of a minor
It's annoying,
inconvenience.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know that a number of actions within Flow had this issue where they were based on the name, because as you probably know, you can't really change the URL of a library, but you can change the name.
Sure.
And so when they initially launched, there were a bunch that were using the name, and then they switched them eventually over time because of this type of issue. So I would expect eventually maybe they would resolve it. But yeah, right now, what you did is probably the easiest thing to do.
Cool. Appreciate it, guys.
Not a problem. Okay, it doesn't seem like there's any more questions.
If no one else is going to ask, I have another question.
You're more than welcome to.
So have you guys I know I'm kind of going back a couple weeks here, so I appreciate the response you guys gave me on the uh, book a room template. Super helpful, got me exactly where I needed to be. So I'm looking at maybe messing around a little more and wanted to see if you've looked at possibly integrating any kind of QR code with Power Apps, so you can maybe automatically launch your URL, maybe do some magic and get directly to the room that you want. I'm looking at it now. It doesn't seem like it's a huge problem. I'm not sure if you've seen that in the past.
I want to be really clear, and also I don't think Mike can hear you. You're asking about the Book a Room app and adding the ability to use a QR code outside the app. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
To
So stick a
basically
QR code on a room somewhere. Someone walks by it, scans
you
it with their
click
phone.
it, and then it takes you right into the room app to
Yeah.
the room.
Yeah.
So you can definitely do that. Though, and I apologize if I'm pausing at all, but I'm hearing myself double, like big time huge. So forgive the stuttering if I start it. Basically, within Power Apps, there is the ability to read a URL parameter when you come into the app on load. And so what I would do would basically enable you to have some sort of code, ID, whatever it is, that identifies the room, and pass that in as a parameter to the URL. You generate that into a QR code. Somebody scans it, it takes it to them, assuming they've got it logged in or they've got the app installed on their phone. It should just work.
Okay. Cool.
And if you, I can actually,
I just figured it out.
oh, you figured it out?
Yep.
So you're gonna pull this out?
Yeah, you can switch back.
Okay, I'm gonna switch back a second.
It was a checkbox.
Oh. 1 second, sorry.
It was a checkbox in a accordion drop down in one of the apps I was using.
Oh.
Nice
Nicholas,
thing.
can you talk so I can verify that I can hear you?
I'm talking. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's very soft though, Mitch.
Oh, it's good for me.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, it was soft for me. Okay, cool. So, I was gonna basically show. So, Mitch, Power App, parameter. There's a Microsoft doc, and I just gotta think. Yeah, here we go. I think it's the param function. Nope, this is going out. This is outbound. But here it is, param. So, okay, it must be further down. Here we go. Retrieves a parameter passed to the app when it's launched. And so basically, you do param parenthesis and give it your thing, and it just does it. And I'll copy this so you can get it, and I'll put it in our meeting chat so you've got it. But that should, well, nope, that's the roadmap, so that won't work for you. Try this again.
So I'm understanding that correctly. The goal there, the objective was post a QR code on like the outside of the conference room.
Correct,
Or
yeah,
something
exactly,
like that. Somebody
100%.
can scan it and book it.
And then, get
Yep.
right to the booking. Yep. So that's how I would do it. I would, again, just use the parameter function on load of the app to say, hey, do I have this parameter? Oh, I have it. Try to look up the room and just take them right to the room. Cool. Anybody else? Doesn't seem like it. Excellent.
Cool. Do you want to talk about anything fun? Or do you want to just be done?
The Book a Room app is an interesting conversation. So right now, the QR code idea is really actually great. If I had budget power over some of the projects I'm working on, I would add that as a feature to them. So I'm continuing to work for one of our clients on a Book a Room app for the mobile, for basically mobile devices. And some of the stuff that we're adding to it is the ability to post or plot the conference rooms or the workspaces on a floor plan map and allow the user to basically look at the floor plan, figure out where they're at in the building, and then select a room from that floor plan and be able to navigate to it physically. So that's just another, the QR codes is another feature similar to that as a way to kind of enhance that experience of people finding those workspaces.
The only other thing I would say is that I know that a lot of people here are that we've been talking to have a lot to do with Power Apps, Power Automate, those types of things. They are rolling out the next, like they roll out waves. So a lot of the features for Power App and Power Automate, they're not like Office 365 as much like some of the other features where it's like you get a feature at a time. They roll them out in waves. And they kind of associate certain features to the wave. And just so you guys are aware, there's another wave coming. It's like imminent. It's rolling out as we speak. So there'll be some new features. When I reviewed it the last time, a lot of those features were related to Dynamics, quite frankly. So I don't know how many of them are really going to have a huge impact on what a lot of the people who we're talking to right now would have. But there is another big wave coming. That's all I got.
Cool.
All right, well, we can wrap it up. Like we said before, we do this the first Wednesday of every month, so feel free to check back for the next event. Thanks for joining us. Like I mentioned before, if you want to be in the loop on the latest content that we're producing, feel free to subscribe to our newsletter. We just pushed out an email at the start of this event about Matt Dressel here explaining the 3 different types of Power Apps. So that was a good one. And then lastly, if this was helpful today, we'd love if you guys could just share with a friend, share with someone outside your organization, plug us if you feel like we might be able to be helpful to them. Otherwise, we will see you again in a month.
In a month, yeah. Thanks, everybody, and have a great for us in the U.S. at least, it's a holiday weekend, so enjoy.
See ya.